Hello everyone, Fertility Journals here. I am recording this video during Halloween. It is Baba's first Halloween. So we're really excited. Hence you can see my little ears here, my tiger ears. But I thought I'd hop on here to be able to share some perspectives like I usually do on our journey. And if you're new, thank you so much for watching. I did decide to start this YouTube channel after gaining motivation, inspiration from those who had undergone IVF before me. And as I navigated my 12 IVF cycles, which ended up being with success, we do have a bouncy, beautiful baby boy. I thought, let me hop onto this space and be a part of that conversation that just is aimed towards inspiring, motivating, encouraging women. And so the hope is if you stop by that you're going to walk away with at least something that's going to help you with your journey. This is a journey of hope and faith. It is gruesome, it is grueling, it is confusing. It takes so much from us that I think this community is absolutely important. Thank you so much for watching. Today, I'm going to answer the question that I have received a few times, which is to talk a little bit about our IUI journey and how that was like. Because for some of you, you might be in that initial stage where you're just starting to do the treatments, and IUI is something that you're willing to try. So if you are interested in our IUI journey, stay tuned. Our IUI journey did not end up being successful for us. We did 5 cycles. However, that does not mean that for you who is watching that it may not be successful, because your diagnosis could be different and you might be in a different situation. And so I'll tell you a little bit about the positives of IUI, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the areas of growth when it comes to that fertility treatment. So when it comes to the positives, we were excited when we first started IUI because it was going to be a step up from the previous attempts of gaining a pregnancy, which is conceiving naturally, conceiving using the Billings method. So it was kind of like the interception between those methods and IVF, and we felt like we were one step closer. And we did a medicated IUI, meaning that I took medication to mature my eggs, and then hubby would have his little guys washed and cleaned, and then they would be able to initiate that process. And so I will say that it is a good treatment to try, and that would be the first added benefit of the IUI journey. The second benefit of IUI is that it maximizes the chances, because you do have to sign like a statement to indicate that you are going to be open to multiple births, because the chances of twins are pretty high, because they are maturing multiple eggs and putting your husband's or partner's donor, significant other little guys up there. And so there is that likelihood that could happen in terms of building your family. Again, it is a step up from the 2 methods I just talked about of conceiving, which is naturally or using the calendar method. And before IVF, that was the second benefit that we considered the IUI, the maximizing of opportunities. Now, I'm going to be honest, folks, and kind of share with you what ended up happening. And again, this always happens upon reflection, which is why I wanted to share it in this space, because I know I would have benefited if somebody had actually talked about IUI in this way. We, because of our diagnosis, wasted our time doing our 5 IUI cycles. It was a complete waste of time. Dr. Sherman Silber of St. Louis Infertility, he's one of the godfathers of IVF, minimal stimulation IVF, really talks about IUI being a waste, because for women with my diagnosis, diminished ovarian reserve, poor responders, perimenopausal, high FSH, it's really not the way to go. And I wish I knew that back then. The first reason that it did not work out for us was because we couldn't even get data, guys. There was just no explanation except age-related infertility. We didn't know what happened. There's no explanation. It's so frustrating, because when you go through this journey and you spend money and something doesn't work, you want to get an explanation. And so that was the one thing that we experienced that I thought it was important to share. The second is that with IUI, You don't know if the milestones were reached. For example, we didn't even know if our egg fertilized, let alone not knowing that it was unhealthy or unhealthy egg. We just could not know that information. It doesn't have the ICSI, which is what IVF has, which is a way for you to really fertilize the egg and move on to the next milestone. And that was extremely frustrating. And in looking back again, I wish somebody had actually shared about the IUI journey and failures. It again is a very blanket-like approach to being told about why it did not work. Third thing that I wanted you to know about IUI is the fact that in retrospect, my husband and I really felt that we wasted some viable eggs because you don't know if the eggs fertilized. And at that time, I was producing more eggs than I was in latter years. I remember there was a time when I actually had 8 follicles, 8 eggs. I mean, oh my gosh. In looking back, because I ended up having in some cycles 1 or 2 later, I wish that I had maximized those follicles with IVF instead of IUI. And again, I think the mistake we made is that it's not the trying IUI, but it's sticking with it and doing it so many times without going into a more progressive treatment that would have probably been more worth it. The reason I would not recommend IUI is because with IUI, what typically happens is that the egg fertilizes, it has to implant. And if you're taking a medicated cycle, you're probably taking Clomid. And Clomid is known to affect the lining. And I remember in one of the cycles, my RE, reproductive endocrinologist, actually did mention that probably the lining was the cause for concern. And in my mind, I was like, what if that was a viable pregnancy? What if it was just couldn't implant, right? So it doesn't give you the opportunity to be able to take the steps that you need for that viable egg like IVF does. And so in looking back, particularly at that conversation as to why that cycle did not work, if it was really a lining issue, that was a baby that we could have had. And maybe that was a viable egg. And so something for you to think about, particularly if you're continuously going through multiple cycles of IUI and you do have age-related infertility. And so folks, in a nutshell, those are the reasons why we would not recommend IUI just based on our experience. And you know, it's quite interesting because my husband and I look back, it was actually half a year. That was 6 months of my youth lost using a treatment that probably I should have just tried and quickly moved on to the next one. And in looking back, I would say first was my youth. I had all those eggs at that time, and it was really just a waste of money. You know, it's interesting because I was watching Phil and Alex the other day, and they are trying for baby number 2, and they were just kind of reflecting. And I remember Phil mentioned that too, like the IUIs being such a waste because they're so cost effective. But when we look at it in the long run, how much money you're spending, you'd rather have committed to IVF. And so we just wanted to share this information with you so that if you are at the stage where you're thinking about doing additional IUIs, you'd at least know what other experiences have been. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Until my next video, bye.